On the island of Sumbawa, nestled within the Indonesian archipelago, a mountain stirred. For centuries, Mount Tambora had stood silent, a behemoth cloaked in lush vegetation. Beneath its placid exterior, however, a fiery heart pulsed. Unbeknownst to the islanders who lived in its shadow, unimaginable forces were gathering strength within the volcano's depths. The year was 1815, and Tambora was on the brink of an eruption that would reverberate across the globe. The first signs of unrest came in early April when a series of tremors shook the island. Plumes of smoke began to rise from the mountain's summit, followed by showers of ash that dusted the surrounding countryside. Fear gripped the inhabitants of Sumbawa as the ground beneath their feet trembled with increasing violence. Little did they know that these were merely precursors to a cataclysm of unprecedented scale. The eruption of Mount Tambora was not a single explosive event, but rather a series of eruptions that unfolded over several days. On April 10th, 1815, the mountain roared to life, sending a towering column of ash and pumice high into the atmosphere. The initial blast was so powerful that it was heard over 1,000 miles away, shaking the very foundations of nearby islands. The sky darkened as a thick blanket of volcanic debris blotted out the sun. The eruption of Mount Tambora was a disaster of unimaginable proportions for the people of Sumbawa and neighbouring islands. Pyroclastic flows, those deadly rivers of superheated gas and ash, surged down the mountain slopes at speeds of up to 100 miles per hour, incinerating everything in their path. Villages were obliterated in an instant, their inhabitants buried beneath a torrent of volcanic debris. The air itself became thick with ash and noxious gases, making it difficult to breathe. The immediate death toll from the eruption is estimated to have been in the tens of thousands, but the true extent of the devastation would not be fully realized for weeks and even months to come. The island of Sumbawa was transformed into a desolate wasteland, its once fertile fields buried beneath meters of ash. Crops were destroyed, livestock perished, and freshwater sources were contaminated. The eruption of Tambora was felt far beyond the shores of Sumbawa. Tsunamis, generated by the volcano's collapse, radiated outward across the Java Sea, slamming into coastlines hundreds of miles away. Ships were tossed about like toys, and coastal settlements were inundated by walls of water. The ash cloud, carried by the wind, spread across Southeast Asia, darkening the skies and disrupting trade routes. As devastating as the immediate effects of the Tambora eruption were, it was the eruption's impact on the global atmosphere that would have the most far-reaching consequences. The volcano ejected an estimated 150 cubic kilometers of material into the atmosphere, including massive quantities of sulfur dioxide. This gas, once it reached the stratosphere, underwent a series of chemical reactions, forming tiny sulfate aerosols. These aerosols, suspended high above the Earth's surface, acted like millions of tiny mirrors, reflecting incoming sunlight back into space. This in turn reduced the amount of solar radiation reaching the planet's surface, leading to a global cooling effect. The eruption of Mount Tambora had effectively shrouded the Earth in a veil of sulfuric acid, altering the planet's energy balance. The formation of these sulfate aerosols is a natural consequence of large volcanic eruptions, but the sheer scale of the Tambora eruption meant that the volume of sulfur dioxide injected into the stratosphere was unprecedented in recorded history. The veil of volcanic aerosols would linger in the atmosphere for several years, casting a long shadow over the Earth's climate. There's Section 4, The Sun's Shadowed Gaze. Across the globe, people began to notice a change in the sky. The sun, normally a brilliant orb, appeared dimmed and hazy, its light diffused by the veil of volcanic aerosols. Sunsets were unusually colourful, painted in hues of orange and red as the sunlight was scattered by the suspended particles. While these atmospheric effects may have been aesthetically pleasing, they were a harbinger of the dramatic climate changes that were to come. The dimming of the sun had a profound impact on the Earth's energy budget. With less solar radiation reaching the surface, global temperatures began to drop. The cooling effect was most pronounced in the northern hemisphere, where average temperatures dipped by as much as 0.7 degrees Celsius or 1.3 degrees Fahrenheit in the year following the eruption. While this may seem like a small change, It was enough to disrupt weather patterns and trigger a cascade of events that would have devastating consequences for human societies around the world. The cooling effect of the Tambora eruption was not uniform across the globe. Some regions experienced more pronounced cooling than others, while some areas actually experienced warmer than average temperatures. This highlights the complex and interconnected nature of the Earth's climate system, where changes in one part of the system can have ripple effects that are felt thousands of miles away. Section 5. A global chill. The summer of 1816 was like no other in living memory. Across Europe and North America, the skies remained stubbornly grey and a persistent chill hung in the air. Frost blanketed the ground in the middle of July and snow fell in June. Rivers and lakes froze over and crops withered and died in the fields. The unseasonable cold and lack of sunlight cast a pall over the land, leading many to believe that the end of the world was at hand. The year 1816 became known as the year without a summer, a testament to the profound impact that the Tambora eruption had on the global climate. The unusually cold and wet conditions were particularly devastating for agriculture. Crops failed on a massive scale, leading to widespread food shortages and famine. Grain prices soared and desperation gripped the countryside as people struggled to survive. The effects of the Tambora eruption were felt far beyond the agricultural sector. The textile industry, reliant on cotton crops that had withered in the cold, ground to a halt, leading to unemployment and economic hardship. Transportation networks were disrupted as rivers froze over and roads became impassable. The cold, damp conditions also led to outbreaks of disease, adding to the misery of the time.